Okay, so last week we talked about the particles and the particle simulation with the coins, and that kind of similar to what I did before. Now, what I felt is my whole thought process behind this project is gold or silver, precious metals will be there regardless of what happens. It's kind of your plan B way of saving money or preserving your wealth. And the thought I had is I should probably have, some kind of explosion and destruction and things. So I started to work on explosion. I had played around with it a little bit in the past, and I had had no success. So I was very pleased that after doing a bunch of research and looking at different tutorials and what have you, I was able to do two different things. One of them was get this render here, which was part of the little video that I put at the beginning of this. And as you can see this render, and I was actually able to bring it into cinema, which we'll look at in a minute. Couple of key things with this. Let's see. Go to the right place. I created this here. This takes the output of the simulation, and in the past, when I had tried to create materials and output with Redshift, I got black and white. I could never figure out, and I followed different things, it just never worked. Well, I finally found a tutorial. Let me see if I can find the individual who did this.
However,
this was from Resilient Picture Company, and this tutorial that he did, and he also sells classes, although his classes seem to be doing a lot with the I guess it's another sim, a different solver. But the usefulness of this tutorial in terms of handling things like materials and getting the thing to actually work. So here's the key. The key was, instead of putting the material here, is it here? Here. What worked was when I took the merge, I put in a material node here and actually set the material in here. And we're going to take a look at it in a minute. And then I had fire out. And let's see. I was able to then, I don't think I'm using .net. I think that's empty. But what I was able to do then is render this, and so the material's on it, create the output, and let me show you the material, because that's the key. You have your volume. Now, this is kind of smoke and fire, so it's not just smoke. And you need different things. You have density. The two key things are density and emission. You can play with this to get different looks of your Redshift volume. This is under advanced. Under basic, you can set the channel and then set it at black and white, whatever. This is black and white. I pretty much left absorption alone. And trying to remember now, I think it's just channel. I don't think you need color channel. I put it in both, just trying to get playing around, but you can set different colors, and then you can play around with this. This is your volume. This is a Redshift volume that goes into a Redshift material. And what it makes, if you go up, is you have a Redshift VOPNet. And that produces your explosion. Now, that's one way of rendering it. And we could bring the other stuff in here and then just do it that way. The other thing is, sometimes I know I took or actually I'm still going through parts of it, by a gentleman named Mark Voucher. He is an artist at one of the big studios in Texas, and I think he's still with them and working for them, but I'm not sure. He was when he did this course, and it's a 40-hour, very detailed class on Houdini, and he covers this sort of stuff. Now, he did it originally in 18, and then he did an update for 18.5, and then there were additional changes for 19, which the next thing I wanted to do, because one of the things in this class was geared for cinema artists wanting to know Houdini, so he would bring things back into cinema, which isn't a good way because having it in one place and so on. And there are a lot of cute little, add-ons and different things like the grayscale gorilla stuff that you can use in there. So what I first tried, I was trying to figure out how do you do this thing? How do you, because you can't, my initial try was to just let's just render the volume. Well, that doesn't work. You get nothing. I mean, it's not a thing. So what you have, the second attempt I made was kind of clumsy. I turned it into an actual mesh, and I got a mess, is what I got. Basically like this blob. And the biggest issue with it is it didn't have, remember I mentioned temperature and density. It had nothing, it didn't bring any of that stuff in. So basically it got a gray thing. And so that wasn't going to work. You see, I say it doesn't work. So I went and started cruising back through tutorial. Well, I knew that Mr. Foucher had done some stuff like this in his class, so I started cruising through that, and kind of his example was different. That I was looking at, it was like smoke type of stuff. So I had to figure, so I went through and I looked at his example, and after I cashed out the fireball, remember this is a volume, and one of the things you have in getting this stuff out of here is it could be heavy. With this, when I tried to make it in the limbic, the first time I did it, I didn't try to get, I just did it, and it was like ridiculously large, like 27 gig or something crazy. I found that by playing around with things, adding the VDB smooth, changing some of my values, I got it way down. The smooth does help, but the VBD the limbic wasn't going to work for this. So looking at his example, what I did is what I did is I was saying keep the density, flame, and temperature and get rid of everything else, because those are the main things we need to determine our explosion. I took what came out of that and converted it to a VBD, Now this was a trick that he taught where you scale it up here. And the reason you do that is that you can use another trick that he talked about, which is unscaling the density in essence. So it's because it's the density, you don't want to scale the density, you only want to scale the size. So he followed that. I followed that. And like I said, he had some very good tips. Now, here's the other thing. Cinema will take a Vbd output. So what you do is you output the soul, and you have to call it Vbd, or, because that's what I discovered, if you do not put Vbd at the end, Cinema is going to be like, or actually it's the Redshift Volume is going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about here. I have no idea what this BC, whatever, typical output is. So you have to change that to Vbd. And now you have a Vbd. So with that, you can go into Cinema. And here's my shader graph. We'll get to this in a second. Here's the explosion. Not quite as nice yet. I still a lot of room to play here. Get this looking. But I'm also doing this in Redshift. Now you could do this in Octane, and he actually does in his class have an Octane example. But the key thing, well, first let me get this out of the way so you can actually see a couple of things here. Before we get, when you want to look at this, let me get the shader out of the way as well for a second. When you have your Redshift Volume, you can choose to preview it in points or in a bounding box, which basically gives you a box, so it doesn't look like what you're going to be creating. And then here's two things: maximum points and prune threshold. By default, for this, the prune threshold was too high, so you saw nothing. It was like blank. So I turned it to 0, and what you'll see here is, just going to go back to the beginning. Why is it not? Well, for some reason, it does not want to actually render right now, but basically you have to render you have to turn this to points and have this render as points. And of course there's also your animation, and make sure it detects the range and so on. So what I did is, that's all well and good, but you need some kind of shader. Well, fortunately, Redshift, you can create a volume shader. And it's very similar. The principles are similar. Scatter is your, you have your scatter, and that's similar to, let's go back here for a second. I'm trying to remember there. Material. It is similar to your, oh, it is called scatter. So you have your scatter, and you have your emission, and you can do your little ramps. Here, let's see, and the scatter goes with density, and I don't know what happened to this ramp, but they also have presets, so you can do something like this. or make it however you'd like. And then I did this for the emission, and haven't, the other thing is you can play with some of this stuff to get, and like I said, I don't know why right now I'm not getting volumes out, but because theoretically it should show me the little dots if it's working right, but could be because I have the other things going on. So then you get this explosion here. Like I said, it still obviously needs work because it's all white. It doesn't look as good as right now as the Houdini one. But you can play with the shader and try to get it to look more how you want it by adjusting things like the emission ramp, the modes, and various things that they also have advanced. And actually this was the same thing in Houdini. Let me go back here. So they had this advanced as well. So I had 1 to 0.81 and 1.59 to 1.71. So let's see what happens if I plug in those values. Where are we? 1, and this is 0.81, I think it was. And this is, let's go back, 1.59 to 1.71. And let's see what this looks like now. I'm going to save this. See if we get something that looks a little bit better. Oh, I'm at 0. Let's go to this and see if it'll do it. That's very odd. It's acting up. Let's start it. Start the IPR again. There we go. Well, doesn't look too much different. I think you might be able to, oh, maybe. So this needs a little bit of work. And I think maybe, hopefully, do we have it working? No, I don't know why it's not. Oh well, it is not. Well, at any rate, this is how you, let me see if I can show you something with this, if this does anything. You know what? I'm going to restart Redshift. Restart Cinema. Yeah. And see if I can get it to actually render out and show you what I want to show you in terms of what you see on the actual screen here before you render. So so this is looking, you can see, looking a little bit more promising there. You can actually see it now. Let me show you something else. If you bring this down to, I think I had it at 10, or, yeah, initially at 10. See what it looks like? It's just a bunch of, so you kind of need, let's see what happens when you turn it to 100. Yeah, so it looks more like a volume the bigger this goes. The other thing is, these are so small that the best way to see it, keep it for this thing is at 0 or very low value. Otherwise, it's just, you're not going to see anything. So anyway, I thought this was really cool playing with this, and fortunately I was able to find 2 separate tutorials to kind of bring together. Let's see if I still have that fail, because that'll show you what if you try to turn it into an Olympic. And but like I said, this was a very fun thing to play with. Let's see what I got here. Yeah, look at this. See, you really, if you try to make an Olympic, you basically get nothing. And there's nothing to key off of to get different colors. So this was not a successful attempt. But it was interesting. What can I say? So anyway, hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully some of the tips that I was able to pick up looking at these the 2 different tutorials. One that was rendering the Houdini, in Houdini, and the other taking the Houdini and bringing it into Redshift and rendering it. So you definitely have options. I mean, you can render this out as a video and then go into Nuke and put those together. It really depends on what you're trying to do. I'm thinking what I want is try to do the special effects stuff in Houdini, because that's what it's best at. Put it together as a scene in Cinema, because Cinema is really good with that. Plus Cinema has, I have these grayscale gorilla stuff here, which can make things easier. Now, one thing as time moves on that may be a game changer, especially with Houdini, is Houdini is moving into the, I don't even remember what they call it, but it's sort of an open standard, Solaris, and with that is, what do they call it, like an open scene thing, standard. So they have this already implemented. It's still a little new, and I think that's going to be worth taking a look at some point. But that is, because that can allow you, the whole concept is you create a complete scene. They even have let's see, they call it a stage. And that's where you work on do the Solaris stuff. But anyway, hopefully this has been helpful and interesting. And I will speak to you next time. Take care.